We begin with one of the most unusual and lengthy criminal court battles you may ever hear about. It all started in Iraq in 2007 with U.S. contractors accused of killing innocent civilians in the heat of war. One of the accused, a decorated former U.S. soldier, was on trial just this past week for a second time 11 years after the incident. In all, the lives of 4 decorated former U.S. soldiers still hang in the balance after all this time. Did they act in legitimate self-defense, or are they criminals? And did our own government suppress and misrepresent evidence? Today's cover story is the lingering case of Raven 23.
Target!
The logical place to begin is in Iraq. At the time, one of the most dangerous places on the planet. After the 9/11 attacks, U.S. forces deposed dictator Saddam Hussein, then faced a constant barrage from Islamic extremist terrorists and insurgents.
It was one of the worst killings of innocent civilians by U.S. contractors in Iraq.
On September 16, 2007, there was a deadly clash in the capital of Baghdad. A team of former U.S. military troops, codenamed Raven 23, were working for the private firm Blackwater when they reportedly opened fire on innocent civilians,
killing more than a dozen.
The episode heightened tensions between Iraq and the U.S., and the FBI stepped in to investigate. It concluded the Blackwater contractors unleashed powerful sniper fire, machine guns, and grenade launchers on innocent men, women, and children, shooting at least 14 without cause, including 2 boys, ages 9 and 11. But like most stories, there are at least 2 sides. Eric Prince was Blackwater's founder.
It's the story of American military veterans who answered the call again when their country needed them, this time to protect diplomats in a very large scale in a war zone. And it is their political prosecution that followed a unfortunate incident in the middle of a war zone after multiple enemy attacks.
Prince, a former Navy SEAL, made Blackwater an integral part of U.S. overseas security after Islamic extremist terrorists bombed the USS Cole in 2000, murdering 17 sailors. Blackwater was hired to train our sailors in counterterrorism. In 2004, Iraqi insurgents killed 4 Blackwater contractors, set their bodies on fire, dragged them through the streets, and hung them from a bridge. In 2007, Blackwater's Raven 23 team was working for the U.S. State Department when a car bomb exploded. They were called to move a U.S. diplomat out of the danger zone to safety. What was the claim from the other side? What did they say that your guys had done wrong?
They claimed that it was a bad firing, that there was all these innocent civilians that were killed.
In fact, to this day, media accounts make it sound as if the Blackwater guards randomly opened fire on Iraqi civilians unprovoked and for no reason. But Prince says that sorely lacks context. The Raven 23 team thought it had come under ambush, trying to escort the U.S. official to safety.
The car bomb had gone off, and the support team, Raven 23, was to block the traffic circle so the fleeing vehicles could move through there smoothly. All the vehicles stopped, except for one, which kept coming and coming and coming. It was a white Kia.
The Blackwater team reported the white Kia was driving straight at the convoy like a suicide bomber. When it kept going, despite verbal orders and hand signals to stop, at least one Blackwater guard fired, killing the driver and his mother. Iraqis began firing back, and a full-blown firefight broke out.
Call for them as backup.
Reba and Daryl Slatton are the parents of one of the Blackwater guards, Nick Slatton. So your understanding is that car to them was seen as a threat, somebody
Yes.
that maybe a car bomb.
Exactly. Car bomb. That's what it was. Stop, stop, stop. Keeps coming.
They had been actually briefed that morning on being on the lookout for a white Kia because it's probably a car bomb.
Iraqi investigators and the FBI said panic and animosity toward the locals drove some members of Raven 23 to commit a criminal massacre. When you heard this report, did it ever occur to you that these men would end up being criminally prosecuted?
When I first heard the report of the events of September 16, it actually sounded like dozens and dozens of other incidents that the guys had been in and subject to in Iraq in war zones. Remember, helicopters were shot down, vehicles blown up, men shot by snipers, by suicide vests, by every kind of danger you could face. 41 of our men had been killed in action doing that work for the U.S. government, and hundreds wounded on top of that.
What do you think made this one different?
This was the height of the surge, and it was also the height of real anti-war noise and protest in the United States.
Why didn't Blackwater follow its own policies?
Blackwater and other private contractors were also under increasing attack in Congress over allegations ranging from poor supervision to harmful misconduct. After the murky and disputed accounts of the tragedy in Iraq involving Raven 23, the pursuit of criminal charges against Slatton and the other Blackwater guards has spanned 3 U.S. presidential administrations. In 2008, Slatton and 4 others, all decorated former military soldiers, were charged with multiple counts of manslaughter. A year later, all the charges were thrown out due to misconduct by prosecutors. In 2011, prosecutors refiled charges, then dropped them against one man after new allegations of prosecutor misconduct. Among the 4 left, Nick Slatton was hit hardest. This time, instead of manslaughter, the Justice Department charged him with first-degree murder, accusing him of firing the first shot at the Kia driver, even though teammate Paul Slough had admitted to doing so. Nick Slatton's sister Jessica is an attorney.
Multiple other upgunners shot into the car because the car kept coming. My brother never shot the Kia. The government has known that since day one.
The Slattons say Nick told them not to bother to come from Tennessee to the first trial, a joint trial held in Washington, D.C. in 2014.
He said, "Mom, I'm not a murderer. I didn't shoot the driver of the white Kia. So don't come up here. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. I'll see you." So I thought he was coming home.
At that first trial, Slatton was forbidden from telling the jury that one of his co-defendants had admitted to the shooting he was accused of. All 4 men were convicted. All of them except Slatton got 30 years in prison. Slatton got life for first-degree murder.
So what did it make you think as a mom when you thought he was just doing his job and you heard that he was being perceived as a criminal?
I couldn't believe that the United States was doing this to my son, who served 4 years in the 82nd Airborne and loves this country. I was in shock.
There will come a time you'll see.
But the story was far from over after the 2014 trial. The conviction started a movement by family members and advocates. For them, a big break came last year. An appeals court determined the sentences were cruel and unusual punishment and threw them out. And it said Slatton deserved a new trial because jurors had been kept from hearing key evidence in his defense. That new trial began in Washington, D.C. in July. This time, Slatton's parents, grandmother, and sister were all there. And this time, jurors finally got to hear that Slatton's teammate had acknowledged shooting the driver of the white Kia, the one prosecutors accused Slatton of murdering. But this past Wednesday, after a month of deliberations, the trial, Slatton's second, ended with no resolution, a hung jury. The Justice Department declined our request for comment and hasn't yet said whether it will try Slatton yet again. Slatton's family says Nick is the victim of a malicious prosecution and our government's misguided attempt to use Raven 23 as a symbol of accountability in an unpopular war.
This case has brought me to understand that we don't really live in a country of justice and truth. It's about the check in the winner's column, and that's what our justice system is today, totally corrupt.
So Slatton and the other Raven 23 members have been charged, had charges dropped, were recharged and convicted, then they had those sentences thrown out. All are still in prison while the Justice Department decides on next steps. Meantime, they've served more than 4 years. That's longer than a Blackwater colleague who pled guilty a decade ago to voluntary manslaughter and served a year and a day.